Okay, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and crypto. It's relevant today, okay? More relevant than it's ever been, because our thesis is that Bitcoin is going to continue to go higher. There's a limited supply. It's not like gold, where you're going to produce a lot more gold if prices go higher, a lot more oil if prices go higher. There's a limited supply. And then you had MicroStrategy and everybody tearing apart. The bears tearing this guy apart. Even Chanos is against them. And this whole, Bitcoin treasury strategy where we're going to raise money through the bond market, convertible preferreds and private placement and pipe deals and all this stuff. And we're going to raise a shitload of money. And we're going to take all that money and leverage and continue to buy Bitcoin. And now, what is he on? Like 500,000 plus Bitcoin, one of the biggest owners of Bitcoin.
600,000 they hold.
Is it really?
597 and change.
Do you know how much the ETF has for BlackRock? I think it's a little bit more than that, right?
Let me look.
But yeah, it's incredible how much, think about that. You guys could do the math and times it by 108,000 where Bitcoin is today. And now, all of a sudden, what is it? August 2020, he had that strategy. Everyone is coming out with this strategy, with a similar strategy. And what are they doing? They're using companies, they're called they're like dead stocks on the NASDAQ that really have cash that already passed all the requirements needed to get in the NASDAQ, right? So they have their listing requirements and they're in perfect standing. And then you have companies taking them over, they do reverse mergers. Or you have these shell companies and it's a SPAC and you raise a bunch of money, then you search for a company to raise money. And now you're seeing this whole entire thing get huge. Anthony Popliano, Pomp, right, they call him, he raised $750 million through Columbus Circle Capital. A symbol of that is CCCM. They already acquired over 3,700 Bitcoin, same strategy. The people behind it, Falcon X, Blockchain Capital, it's blockchain.com, Parify, Mark Yusko, RK Capital. Then you have Truth Social, which is Trump's media company, announced a plan to buy up to $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Guys, these are very big numbers. I know we're used to trillions. Okay, these guys are raising money. $750 for Pomp, Trump $2.5 billion, 21 Capital, is symbol CEP. They raised $685 million. That's Jack Mallers teaming up with Cantor Fitzgerald. SoftBank and Tether involved in that. You have PIPE investors, convertible senior secured notes. Again, additional $100 million from existing investors. They already bought 4,800 Bitcoin for $450 million. They got more to go because they raised $685 million. They're going to continue to raise and buy Bitcoin. Mercurity FinTech Holding raised $800 million for a Bitcoin treasury reserve. You're seeing these things. Now, why is it a big deal? Because when these announcements come, these stocks go up 600, 700, 1,000% immediately. So now we're not just seeing with Bitcoin, it's not just a few of them talking about the Bitcoin treasuries and it's in the US. The blockchain group, which is Paris-based, announced plans to raise $340 million for a corporate Bitcoin treasury. Again, this is growing institutional interest in Europe. Metaplanet was the second to do it. They did it after Michael Saylor, Japan-based, now owns 11,000 Bitcoin. That's almost equal with Tesla now. That stock is up over 4,000% over the past year, while Bitcoin is up 70%. Okay, regardless of what you think and why this happens, are you paying a huge premium for it? Regardless of what you think, I'm just breaking these down because I did a lot of research in them. Now, what you're seeing is another shift. Treasuries are extending to other cryptocurrencies. And then you have Tom Lee. Tom Lee has a massive following, the ultimate bull, right? Good for him. He's doing great. He's been right for a long time. The symbol for Bitmine Immersion, which he became chairman of, BMNR, raised $250 million. That stock went up 1,500%, Daniel, in 3 days. In 3 freaking days. Okay, so it was up I think it was up 800%. You could have bought after the news and still made a fortune on it the next 2 days. So they're trying, what's different with this, they're trying to create the MicroStrategy of Ethereum. They're buying Ethereum for their treasury. Interactive Strength, the symbol's TRNR. Pay attention, because these are stocks you probably can get money. Because listen, this is a bubble forming. A bubble in the NASDAQ formed in 1995, 1996, 1997, and it continued through 2000. The NASDAQ actually doubled from 1999 to its peak in 2000, when it was a massive bubble. I think it went from 2,500 to 5,000 before it absolutely crashed. Okay, so when you see bubbles, you shouldn't run, because bubbles mean that you're going to make a ton of money. You should invest in them, but make sure that you have some kind of protection strategy. Either don't invest money you can afford to lose, that you can't afford to lose, have stop losses on it. You could use options around, whatever, straddles, whatever you want to buy, whatever you want to do, but make sure you protect yourself. But a lot of times when you see these bubbles, you're going to see these stocks go up tremendously. So you have Tom Lee, then you have Interactive Strength, which is TRNR. This was a NASDAQ-listed fitness equipment maker. I thought this was hilarious because they are buying a treasury based on Fetch.io. So I don't know if you're familiar with that company, Fetch.io. So they're raising $500 million for that, Fetch.io. That's the currency they're focusing on for the treasury. You have Class Over Holdings raising over $500 million for a Solana treasury. They already bought 6,400 SOL. Justin Sun, we talked about this last week, right? And this is Tron, which is SRM, is a symbol. They reverse merge with a company which is called SRM Entertainment to Tron Inc., right? This is a reverse merger. Started with a $100 million investment. Justin Sun came in. And then you have my buddy James Altucher. I'm going to try to get him a podcast to explain. And he said, listen, my favorite cryptocurrency is Tau, which is an AI-based platform, the largest within crypto. It truly is amazing. I researched this company and it was in a portfolio for a while. So it's AI leading crypto. It's called TAO. And Altucher put his name behind this one, which absolutely, I think it went from 2 to 12. Okay. And a 52-week high and low is like 26 cents to 12.60 or something like that. So a few takeaways before I turn this over to you, Daniel. First, if you want to invest in these companies, fine. It reminds me of the SPAC craze in early 2021. A lot of these guys that get into these names are getting in at very cheap prices, cheaper than you can get in. So if you can get in at these levels, good for you. Get in them. You might have to be an accredited investor. That's fine. Because when these things decline 50, 60, 70%, and they will one day. It might not be this year, might not be next year, might not be the year after. I mean, because Bitcoin is red hot right now and you have a limited supply with this massive demand. Now, everyone's taking US dollars, raising money with convertibles that don't even have to pay interest. And even GameStop, which is the worst company in the world, was able to do this without paying interest to buy a shitload of Bitcoin. So when I see this happening, it means Bitcoin's going to go a lot higher. The top 5 or 6 financials, cryptos are probably going to go higher. They're around these. However, the next stage, my thesis, Daniel, was always that, hey, buy the next 100 cryptos. Now that you have this regulation around, now you have a positive administration, positive SEC that's pro-crypto, they're going to do well. This is sucking the air out of those altcoins, especially the ones that are probably like 60 to 100. Well, maybe the top 40, maybe the top 20 are going to do well because of a lot of these. But either way, these strategies are raising a lot of money to buy the underlying cryptocurrency. And there's about 5 or 6 of them that they're doing. But just seeing this model and how it's rapidly growing over the past 30 days. This hasn't been going on for a long time, but it reminds me of the SPAC craze, which did very well at the beginning. But I talk about Chamath, who I love, is all in podcasts. Those guys are great over there. I didn't like what he did here. Okay. It was what he did with his space company, telling you that it was a value play. It was great. Everyone's going to space, and then sold out of the whole thing. Right. And just made hundreds of millions of dollars. And that stock absolutely crashed. You saw that. I think it's 95% of SPACs are down 90% now. 90% SPACs, right? Total bullshit, all this stuff. But who's down 90%? You are, right? The retail investors are, because they were sold this bag of bullshit. And that's fine, right? You know, people say, well, you should do your research and whatever. You know what? That's what you had. That's why you're listening to people. And when you're listening to a guy like Chamath that went up there and said, this is a value play. You have to be in it. This is great. We're in it for the long term. This is stuff that he said, promoting the shit out of it and then getting out at the top completely. If he really loved it, why isn't he buying it right now when it's down 95%? Why isn't it buying it now? Right? So big cash money grab, that's what you're seeing with big names getting involved. Pretty interesting, but a lot of takeaways. The biggest takeaway is Bitcoin. A lot of the underlying cryptocurrencies that these treasuries are backing are probably going to go a lot higher.
What fascinates me and surprises me a little bit about this strategy is the negativity that it's getting from a lot of Bitcoiners and anti-Bitcoiners. I mean, I understand the anti-Bitcoin narrative, but even Bitcoiners are kind of getting upset about this. And I think this is a great conversation to have. When you look at it, the fixed supply in Bitcoin, the more people, more corporations, whatever they are buying it, is bullish for the price. What's wild to me from an investor standpoint, and I agree that there's a bubble forming, but there's always going to be bubbles forming. And that shouldn't scare you, just as Frank said, to participate. Look at the details on this, because, you know, a lot of naysayers are blaming strategy and Michael Saylor for doing some things. But if you are borrowing money at 0%, and I'm not brushing this under the rug, if your worst case scenario is not a cash component, but it is more dilution in the future, while you need, kind of like the stress test, not only do you need that negativity, you need Bitcoin prices to crash going forward. Okay, which nobody has a crystal ball. Everybody's bullish essentially, except the haters. I understand that. But my point is that if a company like MicroStrategy is borrowing money at 0% and able to buy Bitcoin, right, wrong, or indifferent, that is not as risky as it sounds there. And so that's what you have to pay attention. What are these corporations doing and how? Now, Frank's right. The bubble is, the reason this is happening is because people are greedy by nature, including me, everybody. And Frank, there's a great article, and we've talked about bitcoinmagazine.com a few times, but there's a solid article about, is Bitcoin treasury the next Ponzi scheme idea? And it's essentially, this is a Bitcoiner, and he is kind of anti this. And I agree with a lot of the post here and his points. But Frank, there's a big difference between buying Bitcoin as your treasury asset and how you do it, and also everything else. I think the real bubble is going to be, the first bubble is going to be how many different cryptos catch on, and then what happens to them. Now, Tron is unique because Justin Sun runs and owns and started that, has some power there. Solana is a big competitor with Ethereum. Those are all the big dogs. I don't know anything about Tau, like you mentioned, TAO or TOA, whatever it is. But Frank, I think the risk here is the companies branching out and starting to do other coins. And I think that'll happen because it's just like, remember a handful of years ago, if you added Bitcoin in your name or mining in your name, your stock went up however many percent. So that's going to happen. That's nothing different. But the expansion outside of Bitcoin is going to have my interest. And I think that is where the craziness happens. But I think people are dead wrong on a lot of stuff when they don't actually look at the terms and they keep saying, oh, well, if Bitcoin falls to 80,000, MicroStrategy is in real trouble. No, it's not. If you're too lazy to read the filing, that's fine. But quit saying that if Bitcoin goes under 100,000, strategy is going to collapse because they don't owe anybody money on it.
Here's the deal. How these guys can run into trouble. If Bitcoin collapses, right? If Bitcoin does collapse, they own the Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So that's where the value of their company is coming in. Now, if Bitcoin goes to 20,000, you're going to see MicroStrategy absolutely get annihilated, right? Get annihilated. But that's not going to happen to Bitcoin. Because if you look at everything from the institutional ownership, you look for ETFs, you look at retail, every single, if you look at the charts, and I just did this in the crypto newsletter yesterday at Curzio, Crypto AI. You're looking at the trends continuing to go higher and higher. Like the demand, and just it's the demand is massive and you have a limited supply. Now, here's the problem I have, because Bitcoin is likely going to go to 200,000, which is great for these companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. That's the value, right? That's the collateral they could borrow against. Why this doesn't make sense for a lot of other things when you look at Solana. You know what the max supply of Solana? They don't have a max supply. It's unlimited. Look at this. You can, if you're on a YouTube page, right? This is what it means right here. This max supply right here, unlimited. Ethereum. If you look, let's go to Tau. Tau, there's how many circulating supply? There's 8.9, say 9 million. The max supply is 21 million. Massive amount of supply. Who owns the rest of that? Because as Tau goes higher and higher, because you're using this and you're buying it, what's going to happen? Well, there's insiders that own it. They're going to now they're going to be more in circulating supply. And what are they going to do? They're going to sell the shit out of it, which is going to dilute shareholders. You can't do that with Bitcoin. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. I mean, then you look at Ethereum. Again, another one. If you look at Ethereum here, right here, max supply, unlimited. You could just imagine Microsoft had shares and there's no shares outstanding. We're going to keep printing shares and printing shares. It dilutes the hell out of you. So when I look at Tom Lee doing stuff like this, when I look at some of these big names doing this, I'm like, guys, man, it's such a freaking money grab with Justin Sun and Tron and Solana and stuff like that. You know, you got to be careful. If you're doing a Bitcoin, fine. I get it, right? You have that 21 million. It's limited supply and massive demand. That's just beginning when you're looking at international. It's just beginning when you're looking at U.S. and governments where, yes, everything we confiscate goes into, the strategic reserve. They're going to start adding and buying Bitcoin for their strategic reserve, which is going to send prices absolutely soaring. So if Bitcoin goes to 200, 300, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for these other things. But I could tell you, you're going to see more of them come out because it's a big money grab, and you're going to wind up buying these things up 8, 9, 100%, 1,000%. And that's fine because maybe they go up like we saw with Tom Lee's and goes up 1,400%. You do great. That's awesome. But the fact that you need a popular spokesman like a Tom Lee, a Justin Sun, a James Altucher, a Mahlers, Anthony Pompliano, to me that's red flag all over it. And you know who's the best person? Because I'm like, who's the best person to launch one of these right now that has one of the biggest followings? You know who it is? Peter Schiff.
I know.
Peter Schiff, mark my words, is going to get behind Bitcoin and announce one of these because he loves money more than anyone in the world. And that guy, it makes sense for him. He's smart if he does it. He's going to come out. He's going to put he has millions of followers. He has more followers than all these guys probably combined. And now he has a massive Bitcoin following because he hates Bitcoin. Imagine if he changes and says now because of the Bitcoin strategy, he hates MicroStrategy, he hates Michael Saylor. But the fact that he's going to be able to put I bet you he changes his tune because it's all about the money. Guys, it's always about the fucking money. It really is in our industry. It's always 100% about the money. You say it's not about the money, it's about the money. That's all these guys care about. I'm telling you, that's their incentive. That's what drives them. That's everything in the world, right? You're going to see Peter Schiff actually come out with one of these things and put his name on it. And he's going to probably raise a shitload of money. I bet you $200 million plus, and you're going to have this penny stock or whatever that's trading at 60, 70 cents. That's going to go up to $7, $8, $9, and it'll probably go to 15, 20, 25 over the next couple of years. Yeah, if you want to get into some of these things, I gave you the symbols for a lot of them. Buy a very small position, anticipate you're going to lose all your money. It works for Bitcoin. I don't see it working for Ethereum. It's working right now. Again, it's really exciting. We're in a market, a bull market. It's very easy to raise capital. They're raising real money, guys. They're raising $200-300 million, $500, $600 million, Pomp's case. They're raising real money to take that money and turn it around and buy a cryptocurrency. That's pretty amazing. But I will tell you, if you own altcoins, which I was under the impression that a lot of these would do great, now you have administration that's pro-crypto, it's taking that fire away. It's taking that buying away and it going into, because if you could list these things on the stock market, now you don't have to go to Coinbase. And I got to tell you, I received 100 texts from Coinbase telling me that my account is, they give me a number where, how are you going to remove the account? Please put this note. Like, it's being hacked, right? It's hacked. All these things are hacked. It's hard. Because once you lose money in that, it's very hard to get it back in cryptocurrencies. So you have to go to different exchanges where you don't see that happening on the E-Trades, even the Robinhoods and things like that, Fidelity platforms. But if you could come up in the greatest capital market and raise money in the capital markets, what Coinbase did. Coinbase could have said, hey, we're going to go on crypto like Binance did, and we're going to go, on exchange, offer no equity. But they said that the amount of capital that they were able to raise through the capital markets, it's a listing, right? NASDAQ. If you can come out as a stock now, which you couldn't in the past 10 years in crypto, now you can come out in NASDAQ. Now you're seeing this thunder being taken away from everything outside of maybe the top 20 or 30 coins. Why would you invest, Daniel, in some of these Bitcoin things? Even if it's a Trump coin or whatever, why would you invest in some of them? It's the risk reward. Like, okay, momentum. I could put $1,000 in there. You could literally make $25,000. You can't do that in the stock market. These companies IPO at such high prices, most of the growth is gone. So I even tell everybody, it's worth it. The risk reward, knowing that you're going to lose your money, that you can get 20x is not a bad risk reward. So go do it. Now you remove that risk because you're seeing some of these stocks up 1,400 in 3 days. I'd rather take my chance on these names and even buy them after the news then go into the crypto markets and do this. There's a big shift taking place in terms of, where you're going to put your money in risk assets. And people love this avenue. They love it based on all these things that are coming out and the formula. And that formula is going to be duplicated. Why? Because the smartest people in the room can make an absolute fortune risk-free because they're buying into this shit at 50 cents, 75 cents, 80 cents. The time you get the news, the stock's $7. The time everybody gets the news and the whole world's like, oh my God, this is really cool. And it goes around water coolers, it's $15. These guys make an absolute fortune. They're gone. They have 6 helicopters and 4 airplanes and 9 houses. And then the stock's going to be 15 cents. And you'll be like, what the hell happened? I bought this in $15. I thought this was the greatest strategy. That's going to happen in the future. Right now, if you want to ride the trend is this works. And mark my words. I guarantee you, Peter Schiff, if he's smart, because he likes money, I'm not saying in a bad way. His following, no, I'm not. I swear. His following is so big, it makes sense because it would be in every single news channel of how this guy switched. I guarantee. And says, okay, no longer, now he loves Bitcoin. Now he's behind this, and now he can get his 1 million+ followers behind it. I mean, this is a guy who moved to Puerto Rico for no taxes. It's a guy whose funds are all underperforming, not year to date, since inception, meaning you're making more money if you didn't even know the guy existed instead of investing in his funds. This is a way to make a massive fortune for someone like that, or even for someone who has a very big following. I would love to interview him about that because I think he's going to do it. He's I guarantee he's been pitched.
Give a timeline. He's got to. You can't just say he'll do it forever.
No, he's not going to do it forever. He's got to do it now. It's almost like Chapman. Now, but no, he is. Months? Within the next 2 to 3 months, he'll do it. You got to do that's what Chapman did. Chapman is so brilliant. He really is one of the most brilliant people that you'll know. That he knew exactly, like he's not doing SPACs now. He's doing it then. He did it very early on. All the SPACs were early on where he made a fortune. And look how many people got killed with not only that, when you announce a SPAC and you're raising money, once you raise the money, I think it's a 12-month time frame to pick a company to buy. If not, you're going to lose. The people who started SPACs lose millions of dollars that they put into it. That's why they don't even care what company they buy because the stock's going to come out at 10. They're in at 50 cents, 25 cents a dollar. They don't care. They're like, we just got to find a company. It got to the point where no one was believing it and they couldn't find any more companies. Any more growth companies out there that can inflate the valuation, and then they wind up losing, right? So getting in early is the biggest thing. If he wants to get in right now, if he got him right now, easily $300 to $500 million he'd raise, and he'd be up 1,000%. And you could issue warrants on that, and warrants that are tradable next day, no holding period, because nobody's even looking. That's the SEC does. That's what these things are about with these SPACs. Unbelievable. He'd be very smart to do it. That's all I'm saying.
You do a money grab. Last thing for me, Andrew Ross Sorkin had a good point this morning on CNBC when SEC Chair Paul Atkins was on, and they talked about SPACs and things like that. And Andrew Ross Sorkin said, hey, I would be okay if the situation was, if a big promoter, Chamath, Papliano, whoever, If they come out and they say, hey, we are really bullish on XYZ over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, they should be locked up for whatever the timeline is they're saying. And I have to give credit where credit is due. That is worth exploring to me. Because if Chamath, who is gaining and using his credentials and his brand to get retail investors excited, if he says, hey, we're all going to space next year, then I don't think it's a long stretch to think that he should have to hold that for a year. Even if not, and if you don't want to get into the making the rules like that, at least make it extremely clear. And this is what I hope Paul Atkins does, because I really don't believe we need any more rules, or very few more rules in the world. We have plenty. You got to enforce the rules in place. And if you just make the disclosures, for instance, in my opinion, it is very difficult to try to figure out when a lockup period is on a certain stock for certain situations, because you can file all the filings here, and then you can have a different filing and a different filing. And my point is, just make that as easy as possible. Just make it, like a billboard. Hey, insiders can sell on X date. I know I'm oversimplifying, but that would go a long way. And then when people do abuse the rules, make an example out of them. Bankrupt these guys. Do you think the average investor is going to give a flying Florida about a guy getting made an example of because he's been screwing people over all the time? Absolutely not. Anyway, that's my last thing. But kudos to Andrew Ross Sorkin, because I thought that was a good thing. And that would negate a lot. I agree with everything you just said. I just wish that's one way to help it, because you're not going to do away with it. So either play the game and, like Frank said, know your musical chairs, or just sit it out and wait for, that segment of the crash to happen. Because like we did with SPACs, there's a few that turned out to be great years later.
I think DraftKings as well, and a few of them, but not many.
No, exactly. I'm just saying.
A lot of them are down tremendously. Yeah. Look, this is about your money. And I know people hate the banks, and people hate healthcare companies. We'll cover healthcare tomorrow with Centene. That was really big news. We'll cover that tomorrow on Wall Street Unplugged Premium. Guys, it's $10 a month for that. We offer a trading portfolio. Worth every penny. People that subscribe to that are doing pretty well. Although we did have a pick or two not too good. One of our recent picks, but we're going to really break down a lot of individual names. Also, Apple, recently got an upgrade, which I didn't think was really positive news, and I'll explain that tomorrow. If you want to subscribe to that, you can go to our Curzio research page, just curzioresearch.com. But overall, like the bank's very, very good position, should be in your portfolio, absolutely, even if it's an investment bank like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, even I would say Robinhood in there as well, which is a recommendation that we have. Also covered not just the financials, but you're looking at interest rates in the economy. What do we think of what's going on with the economy? What interest rates are going to be low? There's just so many tailwinds, guys, that you're seeing here. So many tailwinds that are great for asset prices. Not all asset prices, but just great for asset prices. Well, we got the AI trend as well. That just, it continues to build and build, and more companies adopting it, and the amount of money that's being put into there, and energy angle and stuff like that. Cover that as well tomorrow. A huge energy report by Barclays of how much energy is being used by each of the hyperscalers and how it's considerably higher. And nobody's really talking about it. It was a great report by Barclays. I'll cover that tomorrow as well. But really good stuff today. Questions, comments are always here for you. FrankCurzioResearch.com. Daniel, what is your email?
Daniel@CurzioResearch.com.
Bring it on. I'm here, FrankCurzioResearch.com. But all seriousness, we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow at Wall Street Premium. We'll see you then.